Hi everyone, so today we're going to be reading chapters 5 and 6 of Planet Omar Accidental Trouble Magnet. Let's get started. Chapter 5. When I woke up on Monday morning, I felt like my lungs were pushing air out of me and not taking any back in, and my stomach was a giant heavy rock, making it impossible for me to get out of bed. Reasons I was nervous. What if nobody likes me? What if the work is harder than at my last stall? What if nobody wants to be my friend? What if the teacher is an alien? Marianne poked her head around the door and said, "Hurry up, lazy head, and stop pretending to be sick." I wasn't. I wondered how her lungs felt. She was acting pretty Marianne-like, so her lungs seemed to be normal. Then Dad appeared at the door too, and gave her one of his cheeky looks, which made his face look like he knew a secret. He came in and tickled me, and threw me over his right shoulder, just like he was kidnapping me, then carried me downstairs and plumped me down in front of a bowl of porridge. Now, I know what you might be thinking. Yuck! But actually, when you put biscuit spread into your bowl of porridge, it tastes very yummy. Though I'm only allowed one spoonful of the biscuit spread. I ate slowly because of the rock in my tummy. Mum said it would be okay and that the teacher would make sure I made friends. I dragged my legs up the stairs. Used to be known as legs until they got so heavy. I got washed. There was no uniform at this school, so I was allowed to wear what I wanted. I looked for my favourite sweatshirt and finally pulled it out of the space between my bed and my bedside table. Then I looked for my favourite jeans. They were exactly where I'd left them, on the floor next to the bookshelf. They had a stain on them from where Ezra threw a barbecue chicken wing at me. Oh well, I put them on anyway. When I went downstairs, my mum went, "Barmy!" I mean, she took one look at me and flew off the handle. She said she couldn't believe it. That's all she said, actually. She said it 5 times. "I don't believe it. I don't believe it. I don't believe it. I don't believe it. I don't believe it." Dad said calmly, "Son, I think Allah has given you clean clothes to wear. So go and put them on, please, or we'll be late." Then he kidnapped me on his shoulder again and helped me take out some of the clothes from my cupboard. I put them on as fast as humanly possible and ran down the stairs. I flew out of the front door towards the car where Mum was waiting with a cross look on her face. Chapter 6. The thought of getting into the car made my tummy feel like there were a million frogs hopping about in it, just waiting to leap up my throat. So I took a deep breath and imagined a better way to get to school. On a super awesome, magnificent dragon. I could see him there now, just hovering beside our car and looking at me with a smile. He made me feel better about everything. The dragon bowed his head and flung open the car door for me, which made me laugh out loud. "What's so funny, Omar?" Mum asked, one hand still on the handle of the car door. But I shook my head and buttoned my lips. My mum never really understands about how to imagine things properly, so there was no point explaining. I guess it's the kind of thing grown-ups forget how to do. So I just stared at the dragon's blue and green shimmery scales and long swooping tail. As I strapped myself in, I wondered what would it be like to ride him to school instead of driving. He'd fly at least 120 miles per hour. MPH. He looked at me with his almond-shaped eyes and let out a puff of steam from his tiny nostrils. I imagined him riding alongside us all the way to school. When we got out and walked out to the gate, I made him breathe out a huge plume of steam, and in my head I said, "I pronounce thee H2O," as if I were a king or something. I thought that was a good name for him, because steam is made from water and H2O is the chemical name for water. That's the kind of sciencey thing my parents love to talk about. So there I was, the new kid in the class. I was petrified and my lungs were still doing that funny thing. I made them feel better by imagining H2O being silly at the window. He stuck his tongue out. Then he put bits of popcorn in each of his nostrils and blew them out. The teacher, who was called Mrs. Hutchinson, introduced me to the class. She was what my mum would call a pear-shaped person. I liked her hair from the first time I saw her, and later learned that the springy auburn curls reacted to her mood, and told the story of her day. When she was happy, those curls were happy. They would bounce merrily out of her head like beams of sunshine. When she was tired, they would flop down lazily on her cheeks, and when she was cross, they looked more like the twisty metal part of a drill. Sometimes, when she was angry, I would imagine a drill-headed Mrs. Hutchinson making a big hole in the wall quite easily. She asked me to sit down next to a redhead kid called Charlie. Charlie had lots of freckles all over his face and thick rimmed glasses. I thought he looked super cool, so I smiled at him. He smiled back at me. He was missing one of his front teeth. Charlie told me the school was okay. The lessons were okay. The playground was okay when it wasn't wet. And Mrs. Hutchinson's classes were mostly filled with okay kids, except for Daniel. I decided that okay was Charlie's favourite word. Daniel is the one you have to look out for. Okay? Just to stay out of his way. Okay, I said. I thought about all the times my mum had told me to stay away from something which seemed to make me drawn towards it like a magnet. Instead, like when I just had to open Mariam's secret box, because I was told I wasn't allowed to. And when I did, a gazillion teeny beads came pouring out, all over her bedroom floor, just as she walked in. I gulped. Okay. So that was chapter 6 of Planet Omar, Accidental Trouble Magnet.